Ktaqmkuk. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the February edition of Giwe, As the Story Goes, the Indigenous Education Department newsletter. February, we are celebrating and exploring Indigenous art in our Passport to Reconciliation. And whenever we engage in the conversation around Indigenous art, there's always a concern that we're entering into a situation where we may be looking at the differences between appropriation of Indigenous art or appreciation of Indigenous art. So I thought I would take the opportunity to demonstrate an example to help you with the decision making around entering into work with Indigenous artists. I'd like to share a painting with you that I have painted. I'm going to give you opportunities as we go through this to take a moment and reflect. Are we talking about appropriation or are we talking about appreciation? And let's pause as I share bits of story for you to take those considerations and to think about what has been learned through our conversation, which I know will be largely one-sided. I'd like to share with you a painting that I have made that represents a Gitxsan Cree artist, Michelle Stoney, from the Gitxsan First Nation in British Columbia. And this is a painting of a theme that Michelle often engages in, of the Stigioden or Roche de Boule mountains in Hazelton, BC, where Michelle lives. I visited the community. I saw the mountain. I learned of Michelle. And when an opportunity came forward for me to paint, which I don't do, I thought this would be a great opportunity for me to paint a painting such as this. So take a moment now, cast your vote. Is this appropriation or appreciation? So a bit of the story. I traveled to Hazelton as part of an Indigenous cultural exchange with a group of students and staff. We visited Hazelton as we were invited into Gitxsan territory, as those students there had been invited here to join us in Peterborough. While we were there, we went to a artist's retreat, and Michelle Stoney was one of the artists in residence. And Michelle, if you don't know her, is, as I said, Gitxsan and Cree. Her mother was Gitxsan, her father was Cree, and Michelle incorporates into her art traditions from both of those Indigenous cultures. She looks at the form line work that is traditional to many West Coast styles, and she looks at the bright colors and black outlines which we can often see represented in Cree artwork. And Michelle takes the opportunity, being from both those traditions, to blend those styles to create something new and unique, something that is distinct to her and distinct to the cultures in which she connects. Michelle met with us and spoke to the students about her experiences, about the work that she does, about the influences on her art, how her art impacts herself and the work that she does. And she also spoke about Stigioden, which is a significant figure in the community and a significant representation to Gitxsan culture and history. And then Michelle handed out canvases in which she had created in pencil an adaptation of one of her more famous works and one of her more famous themes, and spoke to the students about the inspiration, spoke to the staff about inspiration, about the colors, the design, and then asked us to reflect on our experiences with Stigioden. What had that mountain meant to us when we witnessed it the first time? What time of day did we experience it? When we took the moment to reflect on the mountain, what were the colors that we saw? What was the spirit of the moment that we felt? And then she asked us to paint. And 20 students 4 staff sat down to paint their experience with Michelle's guidance through this work. And each of us at the end were able to produce artwork that Michelle then collected from us. Michelle was responsible for adding the black lines. We did a color by number. So in the end, 24 paintings were produced, each of them unique in their own way, guided by the artist's hand. So now I would ask you, what's your reflection on this? Was this appropriation or was this appreciation? Because we did the work alongside the artist, with the artist's permission, with guidance from the artist, with support of community members and volunteers that worked at the Arts Center, this was an example of appreciation. I would not have taken this on myself. I'm not a painter. This looks like a high quality item I can see, but that was because it was done in assistance with the artist, who brought her experience, lived experience, cultural experience to the conversation with myself and with the students. And we entered into this work in a good way. So when we look at bringing art into our classroom, I would ask you just that. How have you walked alongside the artist? What were the considerations were made when looking at the pieces of work that you were appreciating? Is it possible that you could create an art idea that doesn't involve exactly recreating an artist's work? When we engage in Indigenous art, what we sometimes miss is that there are significant cultural pieces that go into the creation of the art. The artist's history, lived experience, and background is represented by that art. And unless we've walked alongside that artist, and unless we have that experience specifically with that artist, it's not an easy thing for us to say that we understand, that we can engage in that art. So that's the reflection that I would ask you to engage in. Walalia, thank you, take care, and happy February.